Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the North Sydney Local Planning Panel. We are convened here today to make a recommendation to the Council on two planning proposals, one being 17 to 25 Falcon Street, Crow's Nest, and the other being 52 McLaren Street, North Sydney. The panel's role in recommendations to the Council is purely a recommendation. It is then a matter for the Council as to whether they support a matter going to Gateway. The panel has inspected all the sites individually, and we've been briefed this morning by Council's Manager of Strategic Planning and Neil McCarry. And I would like to also introduce the panel briefly. So I'm Jan Morell. I'm here as chair today, and I'm a planner of some 40 years experience at both state government and private practice. Thank you, Lloyd.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Chair. Yes, my background is in town planning and land economics. Spent most of my career in West Australia, moved to Sydney and have been on a number of local planning panels. I run my own planning consultancy with work in metropolitan Sydney and also rural New South.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Chair. My name's Gary Shields. I'm a planner, urban designer and traffic engineer. I've got a tad longer than 40 years experience. I've worked as a consultant and in local council. I also am chair and expert on a number of local planning panels apart from this one. And I look forward to hearing what you've got to say today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Virginia.
Hello, everyone. My name is Virginia Waller. I'm an architect in private practice, and I'm also the community representative for the panel. I've been on the panel since its inception, and yeah, look forward to resolving current applications before us.
Thank you very much, everybody. And I should have asked it before, but I have received no conflict of interest forms. Each member can just indicate they've got no conflict of interest.
No conflict.
I have no conflict.
Right, thank you, and I have no conflict. So just to explain the process a little bit further in terms of our role today, it's not like development applications where we make a final determination. We make a recommendation to the Council on these planning proposals. The planning proposals are very much in their embryonic stage in that they're not ready for public exhibition or not proposed for public exhibition at this time. Sometimes if there is confusion in the community, I note that one of the planning proposals did receive some 12 objections some time ago, has subsequently been amended, but just to for the record, there are no outside submitters or objectors to these planning proposals for us today. Then again, one has to realise that, as I said, these are in their embryonic stages. This is before there's any formal exhibition. They would have to have approval through Gateway before that occurs. So, as I said, this is very much the very beginning of the process. With that, having said that, if I could now move to the first item on the agenda, which is 17 to 25 Falcon Street. This is to amend the Council's local environmental plan to increase the building height from 10 to 21 metres and amend the height of buildings map accordingly. And I have a number of people who wish to address the panel. There are no written submissions for the record. I have Lauren, if you could just indicate that you're here. I have Lauren Honey from Drew Dixon Architects. Thank you, Lauren. I can see you there. I have Harry Vakili. Are you there?
They're not there.
They're not there. They're observing only, but
Lauren's the only one speaking on this one.
Lauren is the only one speaking on this one. Okay, I did have other observers listed here, which was Harry Vakili, and I had Breeza Vakili. They are the applicants for the planning proposal. And I've got also listed as observing only Paulina Pavlenko, the applicant's PA, and I have Gilbert Blandon de Challen, town planner, observing. Are you there? Yes, thank you. You can leave you can leave your camera on. So Gilbert, you can, you're not speaking either, or are you?
No, I'm not. Thank you.
No. Okay, then fine. So we are only here to hear from Lauren Honey. Am I correct? The architect.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you. Very well. We're in your hands if you'd like to address the panel on this matter. You've read the council officer's report and the
Yes, I have. Thanks, Jane. Thanks, Chair. So as you said, my name's Lauren. I'm an architect and a director at Drew Dixon Architects. And I'd like to thank you for allowing me to speak before you, the local planning panel for North Sydney, on behalf of our project team. And we're in support of our planning proposal for 1725 Falcon Street in Crow's Nest. We've been working on the planning proposal for our client site for just over 3 years now, and we're very pleased to have arrived at this point in the process where the panel has an opportunity of recommendation of support for the planning proposal and the planning proposal to progress to the next stage with council. Throughout this time, we've been developing and refining our proposal and the concept design that supports it. We thank council staff who have worked with us and provided a robust and comprehensive planning proposal report. We agree with the report in principle, and we look forward to submitting updated drawings and documents to council, where we hope the design will be further enhanced in accordance with their expectations. We look forward to seeing our proposal progress to the next stage in the process, that being a supporting panel and council recommendations. Again, I'd like to thank council on behalf of our project team and also our clients. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lauren. Now, I think the panel members may have some questions. We do understand this is a planning proposal, but at the same time, in the efforts to support the planning proposal, there has been design concepts produced by yourself, as you appreciate, as we appreciate. There are some questions I think the panel has about those, even though we know that there would be a development application process that would have to follow if there was any rezoning. But given that these concepts are produced to support planning proposals, it's only fair and reasonable that the panel may ask questions of the architectural intent in terms of height, scale, bulk, setbacks, and presentation, given it's such a prominent corner as well. So can I invite members of the panel?
Yes, look, this particular proposal seems to meet the regional and the district and local planning strategies. But there is a suggestion here that the reference design be amended to include certain things. And based on your initial comments, I take it that you're in support of those, or do you want some changes to what's being suggested, or not?
Yeah, we thought the report was comprehensive and robust, as I said. We agree with the report and we look forward to providing updated drawings and documents through to council.
Thank you.
Hey, Gary, do you have some questions re the design?
Yes, two, if I may, Chair. There was a suggestion in the report, if you've read that, that the podium, as it presents in your drawings, is overly strong. And I think the panel is considering that as a distinct option. Are you amenable to maybe reducing the podium size and making that top level part of the tower?
Yeah, we're open to looking into the recommendations that's been provided by the council member that prepared the report, specifically around reducing the podium height. So that's something that we'll definitely be looking at closely. I'd also say that we'd be looking at that in conjunction with what's happening to the east and west in terms of alignment from an urban design point of view and podium alignment.
Thank you. Second question, if I may, again, an architectural one. The height of the building at 21 metres, does that propose a problem for you? Or is it something you could readily handle? modification to the design? Or are you seeking to have an increase of 1 metre or whatever?
Yeah, so Neil will probably be able to speak to this a little bit more, but within the report itself, yes, there's a 21 metre height, but then there's also a proposal to include it into area 2, which allows for an additional 3 metres for any lift overruns or what have you, to provide access to the rooftop itself. So we would certainly be utilising both 21 metres plus an additional 3 metres. And then the other element at play is the crossfall, the topography. I'm sure that you, when you went on site, appreciated that. There's a crossfall on the side of
3 metres?
Yeah, 3.75, I think, metre crossfall. So that's something that we'll be looking at carefully when we prepare revised designs as well.
Last question, Chair.
No, that's
Okay.
fine. Yeah, many as you wish.
Thank you. Affordable housing, I'm just wondering whether you or your clients are amenable to that, and have you given consideration to it? And if so, how much might council expect?
That's something that I'll discuss with our clients, and we can certainly formulate something and have that provided back to council when we provide our updated drawings and documents.
Thank you. That's me.
Hi, Lauren, Virginia. I was just it's just really on what Gary was talking about, is setback to the podium, and it really occurs at level 3 in your elevations.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at the planning, I know it's just a reference plan, but the plan at level 3, that's like a 2-story or over 2 levels. So just in terms of planning, I think you could accommodate setbacks there. You'd have to rejig the plan, but things that it's not like the planning goes over the 2 levels. So
yeah, that's certainly something that we'll look into. Do you mean the topology of the units themselves, or?
well yeah, if you were going to cut back that, so it happens at level 3, so there's a date in there, and you would cut back the, do a further setback, something, the planning to those apartments would have to change. And so the apartment typology is a 2-story as opposed to a single level. So it seems that it could be changed with sort of a certain amount of, it's not going to, it's a reasonable request, I think.
Yeah, that's if a setback is impeding on staircases or anything like that, of course we'll look into revising the unit types accordingly.
So yeah, that was my only question.
Thank you. And I have a couple of questions that very much follow on from what you've heard from the other panel members. Just to put it, I suppose, in blunt terms, I think that planning proposal at the moment with the drawings presented is clearly one that represents as far too bulky for the site. And I would hate to think that this is then translated into future plans, and there must be a degree of understanding that this envelope is not acceptable. The height is another thing, but an increase in height generally means that you perhaps have smaller floor plates. You provide for a voluntary planning agreement that provides for affordable housing in perpetuity, a percentage thereof. And it would be that a voluntary planning agreement would have to be resolved, that would be exhibited concurrently with the planning proposal, given the uplift that's being sought. Furthermore, the additional 3 metres for the ancillary structures on the roof, they would very much have to be ones that are not visible as far as possible from the street. Whether 3 metres is over generous or not, I don't know. If it's proposed then that rooftop structures, other rooftop structures in terms of use of the rooftop for open space purposes is proposed, then that would have to also be limited, because a 3 metre exceedance is certainly a big ask. Going to 21 metres is probably far more appropriate in terms of height, in terms of the surrounding area, in terms of impacts on heritage areas, etc. But I just wanted to make you fully aware that this uplift would not could not come without some commensurate community benefits in terms of a VPA and, as I said, affordable housing in perpetuity. And the mechanism to achieve that is then something that would have to be later on considered or resolved. But I just wanted to make those comments about it's not a matter of getting the height and then filling the envelope. There has to be an architectural merit for the building as opposed to just providing a maximum envelope on the site. So I think that needs, and therefore that would impact on your the gross floor area that's achievable. I also have a concern about the basement area. What is that proposed for? Will that then be included in FSR? I'm just trying to understand whether it's appropriate for that additional area in a basement format in this location. So can you give me any further explanation of that?
Yeah, so I believe that issue has been addressed with the planning officer's report, and we're in support of the officer's recommendations, i.e. that particular 154 metres squared of commercial retail is removed.
Right, that's removed. Okay, then fine. Okay, so I'm just trying to indicate to you that it's not a matter of maximising GFA. With the uplift in the height, it must be a development that certainly contributes to the architectural merit of the area as such, in terms of what we're the guidelines, council's policies and strategies. So they're the only questions that I have or comments that I have. The panel will be considering this matter later on before it makes a recommendation to the council, and our advice or recommendation to the council will be on the website in approximately within 7 days. Generally, we get it up earlier, but I'm just allowing that length of time for the panel to be able to discuss it and to come to a recommendation that's appropriate. So thank you all for attending, and the observers that I can't see, and if you are there, but thank you very much, and thank you to the planner for observing, and thank you for your presentation, Lauren, and the time you've taken today. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to item number 2 now. Item number 2 is 52 McLaren Street, North Sydney. Just over the road, we can nearly see it from where we're sitting. So if I can just do a bit of a roll call here. We have Sean Kaufman, Metro Strategy. Are you there, Sean? Can you just identify yourself? You're on, yes, you're on mute, but that's fine. We can see you. Thank you, Sean. And you are Senior Manager of Urban Planning. Thank you. And Erica Gotlow, Sydney Metro as well, Land Development Analysis for the applicant. Are you there? Thank you, Eric. Yes. And Karen Armstrong, Ethos Urban. Thank you. I can see you there.
Hello.
And Juliet Winternoom Low.
Hello.
Is that the correct pronunciation?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Ethos Urban as well. Thank you. Planning consultants. And both of you are observing. Are you the consultant for the project?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you very much. And then we have Lee Collins, GHD Woodhead, Architect Consultant observing.
Yes.
Thank you. And we have Sean Ho, Architect Consultant, also observing. Both of you are from GHD Woodhead. Right, thank you very much. Okay then, well, the only ones presenting, or the only person presenting then is Sean. Sean, is it? Is that correct? And you're on mute, I believe. Sean, we can't hear you yet. just we'll give you a minute to check your technology. We're not muting him, are we, Miranda?
It's not on mute, but he has no volume at his end.
Sorry, Sean, you're not coming through. I can see we haven't muted you. Can you just take a minute to see whether you can correct the technicality?
I think he's going to sign back in.
He's coming back in.
I think so.
Very
yes.
well, thank you. Right, Sean, how are we going there?
Not back yet.
Not back yet? Eric, do you know what's happened to him? Okay, you all working from home these days from Sydney Metro?
Eric, we can't hear you either.
We had the same issue joining Zoom. It does need to change the audio access. So Eric, I think you've got the same issue.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Got you now.
Yeah.
Okay, magic. I might tell Sean the same setting. Just give me one moment, sorry.
Okay, fine.
I think you just tried to.
He's here.
Here, Sean, you're back in. Now you're on mute. Right. Hello?
Yes.
Yep, speak up a little bit. Yep.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Apologies about that.
No, that's fine. Okay, so if you could please present to the panel, that would be appreciated. Comment on anything that is in the report that you think is necessary. Thank you.
So we'd just like to address the panel to introduce the team. So as we did the roll call, we have our consultant planners and designers on board. So just in case you have specific design and planning questions, they can help us address your questions. But in essence, we're appreciative of the efforts that North Sydney Council has provided in terms of us addressing the initial concerns around the proposal. We understand that there were a few concerns relating to the height and density and the public benefit for the site. So I'd just like to reiterate that Sydney Metro as an organization, we're not just in the business of delivering transport infrastructure. We're all about creating great places around our stations. That's why this specific proposal, we'd like to highlight the importance of its strategic merit. The current proposal in its current shape complies with the transport-oriented development principles that we push for around our station entries. So in particular, this site is in close proximity of our northern entry site. In terms of the site-specific merit, we believe that the way we've amended the proposal back in September 2022, we've successfully addressed most of the concerns raised by council officers and the community. We have reduced the height of the site to respond better to the heritage and the desired future character of surrounding buildings, particularly those around McLaren Street, Miller Street, and Walker Street. That's consistent with the civic precinct planning study. We've also provided a VPA that's consistent with the concerns relating to the public benefit that will come out of this planning proposal. We'll be providing a 900 square meter childcare facility to council. And we'll also be providing the through site link on the eastern boundary, which will be connecting the Ward Street precinct with Elliott Street. This particular offer will also include some landscaping and a potential to integrate that through site link with the podium development that will be on the site. And so in saying that, we are supportive of the council officers' recommendation for this proposal to proceed to gateway determination, and hopefully the panel also supports that recommendation.
Right, okay, I do have a couple of questions and I'll open it up to other panel members who I know have questions. In particular, we talk about public benefit. Yes, through SiteLink, the childcare facility, but at the end of the day, the uplift should consider a component of affordable housing in perpetuity. And I don't see that in the planning agreement at this point, in the draft planning agreement at this point in time. I don't know whether you were online for the previous matter, but I did also say that this is a very good opportunity, given a government-owned site, to provide the very much needed affordable housing for essential workers, as I said, in perpetuity. And I'm just interested, given the uplift that's sought, what your response to that is. And it may be that your planners wish to comment as opposed to yourself, Sean, but I'll leave it in your hands.
I could pass it on to our planners, but it's also a live discussion that we're having with other state agencies, because obviously with
if you can just repeat that, just speak a bit more slowly because it sounds rather echoing.
Okay, apologies. But yeah, so like the response to affordable housing will be a whole of government approach for Sydney Metro, given that we are a state agency and this is a live conversation that's happening with the new government as well. So regardless of what happens in this site specific matter, we will have a line-wide response as to how we'll be addressing affordable housing across our sites throughout the alignment. So that's something that we could take on notice. But if anyone from the planning team has a specific response, I could pass it on to them as well. Maybe Karen or Juliet.
Yeah, if I could ask Karen or Juliet to reiterate what Sean has said, because we don't have a terrific reception here from his end. So I think you're probably clear, both
yes, look,
Karen and Juliet. Yes.
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can, clearly.
Great. So just reiterating Sean's comment that as an organisation, Sydney Metro are looking at what solutions they have as part of the government's, New South Wales government's consideration of affordable housing and housing supply generally solutions at the moment. So no specific response for this site at this stage. And it's something that can be addressed in continued discussions. It doesn't necessarily need to delay the planning proposal. Very keen to have this progressed, given the alignment with the Sydney Metro development. So I guess it's the key thing is very keen to see the process continuing.
I guess that doesn't provide this panel with much comfort, Karen, in terms of what then would be the affordable housing in perpetuity for this site, which is excellently, wonderfully located if there was ever a site to provide for this.
Yes, look, appreciate that. While it's also can be something that can be addressed at the DA stage, there isn't a specific
I'm just saying
policy.
Yeah, there may not be, but in terms of community benefit in the uplift, etc., it seems that, as I said, this is an appropriate site right above the metro to provide for that very much needed component for essential workers, etc.
Yes, and I think there's an agreement that yes, it's a key location. There will be levels of affordability in the solution, but no specific. We can't give a specific feedback on that, but I suppose we can certainly take on a recommendation from the panel to consider that.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Now, other panel members will have some questions, I'm sure. Gary?
Thank you, Chair. Question to Sean, if I may. And Sean, you're the architect. That's correct? Yes?
Sean?
Having a bit of trouble communicating with you, Sean.
No, it's Sean Ho. I'm assuming there are two Seans in the call.
Oh, okay. You're the architect.
The architect is Sean Ho. My name is Sean Kaufman. I'm from Sydney Metro as the applicant.
Okay, so it's the other Sean that's the architect.
Yes.
Could I direct this question then to the other architect? Sorry, to the other Sean, which is the architect. And this is a little bit like asking a mother about their child, but we're just concerned at the height of the building and the somewhat site constraints that affect the design, making it such a rectangular building and such a strong building and such a high building in this fairly prominent location. The panel was talking about how you might be able to further articulate this building over and above what you might have already done in the design that's before us today. Did you hear that? Thank you.
We can't hear you, Sean. Sean too.
I might just.
I think we might pass to Lee because Lee's the GHG lead consultant.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, sorry. Sure. Just mute. More technical problems. Yeah, so we can definitely look at, I mean, as you pointed out, it's a very narrower site and constraint. I think we already, I wasn't the original designer of this building, but I've since taken it on. I know to the west, we've already pulled the actual building back from the western boundary to meet the requirements, and so this is further emphasised that sort of rectangulation of the building. So we could look further at it, but given the constraints on the site, it's really going to impact on the actual apartments and yeah, I guess the overall spatial allowance on them floors. But it can be something that needs to be addressed if the panel requires that.
The western, I'm looking here at what I think is the western elevation, and it's incredibly massive, and it's got almost an 80s feel to it in terms of the design. And it is something you're prepared to look at, but you haven't got any thoughts at this stage. So what you're telling us. Right.
Just a follow-on question from Gary, then we're very specific about the FSR that's being sought, 5.3 to 1. But if in fact there's further articulation required, etc., then you're not going to be able to achieve the 5.3 to 1. So there would appear to be a need to perhaps revisit some of these elements. Can I just ask the architects to comment on that?
Yeah, sorry, could you just, I missed that. So you're asking if we need to reduce the current FSR? Well,
the FSR that's being sought, yeah. And given Gary's comment about the building and the design, it just seems that that FSR could not be achieved if there was more design considerations. And given its location, it's important that this be rather exemplary in its design, as opposed to putting up a maximum envelope and filling it up.
Yeah, so you're correct. Yeah, so if further articulation is required, then that will definitely impact on the design, the FSR, and the 5.3 would not be able to be achieved. So yeah, I can't. So if that's the panel's desire, is for us to provide more articulation, then that would reduce that FSR of that building, because we're at our maximum, or about the maximum footprint, to allow for the overshadowing and everything else that we've considered, and the other constraints within the site, thinking of the heritage and the surrounding heritage as well.
Just to note also that it is a maximum FSR, and there is potentially flexibility for the commercial / residential mix to change the FSR. So agree that it does come down to the design, and the team is quite agreeable to the DCP detailing, helping that. It may be that that FSR is not achieved, but it is a maximum as well.
Gary has another question.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I don't care who answers this, given your communication issues, but it just seems to me the height of this building is a quantum leap from what was previously approved on the site. I understand what was previously approved was in the order of about 14 stories, and we're much more than that with this proposal. What was the rationale, one, behind the height, and two, behind the FSR that's being sought from council, other than to maximise the return of for the development?
I'm happy
I'd
to.
like to think there's another wholesome objective behind it.
I'm happy to pitch in. So essentially, this planning proposal is effectively realising council's strategic vision for the site, and we're confident that it strongly aligns with the civic precinct planning study, which actually envisaged a maximum of 24 stories on the site. So we are consistent with that, and that has informed our reference scheme and proposed controls. But happy for Sydney Metro to pitch in if you have anything further to add.
Yeah, just to reiterate Juliet's comments. So the civic precinct planning study was council's strategic vision for the site, I think endorsed November 2020. It was partially basically dictating controls that said 24 and 14 stories as a max height for this site. And that was really born out of as well the fact that the Victoria Cross Northern entrance was located next door and sought this site as a strategic location to have people live close to public transport. And since we provided, I think in the report it's detailed that we provided an initial reference scheme to that did have the 24 and 14 stories. However, council officers were of the view that further ADG analysis and assessment could be done, and in doing so we found that actually reducing the height of the northern building would improve the quality of the overall building and the floor plates. Hence why we are now 24 and 8 stories, which is a reduction from what was prescribed in council's endorsed strategy.
So I've got a question. So I appreciate the site is quite long, it's a lozenge, but the building looks like it's like a lozenge just extruded. And I realize it's early stages, but was there any exploration of like, you know, maybe 3 elements on the site? And so then you get more cross-site contact connectivity and, you know, less overshadowing. And looking at the plans, the plans seem like they're decent plans and they respond to the ADG. But then, and I know it's early, but it's a rectilinear form, but then you've got these elements of like curved facade, just sort of juxtaposed a rectilinear bit of a wall. I understand there's going to be refinement, but it's the end result is it just looks like this long extruded form on the streetscape, and it's not, to my mind, it's not really offering anything. It's not, you know, it's a key strategic site, should have a vision about it or be, you know, giving something back, and I don't think it's there quite yet.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off there. I appreciate the comments. I think one thing that's probably not detailed as well is the evolution of actually where this building first started from our first set of plans when we sat with the council officers and kind of where we're at today, sort of 2-3 years later since that first meetings that we did have. In terms of listening to sort of the forms and the extrusion, one thing we have to really appreciate that it is quite a constrained, narrow site, and we are facing quite onerous like ADG separation requirements to the east, sympathetic heritage to the west, to the north we also have the school. So we've kind of really factored in all of these different elements and tried to think of what's an appropriate response to the site, also noting council's vision in terms of the height and the density. That's where a lot of this has been driven from. And the only other point I'd like to also make is that at this stage, we're at the planning proposal stage, really trying to lock in, I guess, the height and the FSR. And we imagine that once we do have an approved proposal, we'd like to divest this site. So there would be a further detailed analysis of how a developer could make sort of an actual built form kind of continue within that envelope that we'd like to set up. So the real intention of us doing this planning proposal is to really set those broad parameters and really lock in the key public benefits for the site. And then intention is to sell and divest this site to a developer who would then work with council on what that DA would look like.
I suppose, Chair, one comment. The problem with that, once you divest the site to a developer, his expectations are exactly what's in the planning proposal. And the ability of council at that stage to bring about design improvements or other general changes is quite limited. So I think from the council's point of view, council would like to see some improvements at the early stage, which then forms guidelines going forward to a future purchase. But yeah, that will be a future purchase.
Yeah, I think it might not be translated too well, but in terms of, I guess, in reading the report, like seeing the first version of what we've done with the planning proposal and actually the several iterations we've done with council officers, we actually lodged a full planning proposal package in 2021. And we had received quite onerous design changes off the back of that, particularly around increasing the setbacks to the west, particularly around elements around the height, thinking about the Aqualand development, thinking about Ridges Hotel. And we've actually come a long way, I think, since then in terms of trying to maximize amenity for all the landholders in the area. I don't think maybe that's been translated too well in the report, because I mean, it's I think quite a big factor, particularly when the comment was raised, it looks like an extrusion of sort of the entire site. Well, actually, we've stepped a lot of back. We've actually cut down the FSR quite considerably as well, and still trying to maintain those public benefits that we've initially kind of said that we'd deliver on.
All right, thank you.
And just to add to Eric's point, we are supportive of a site-specific DCP being prepared for the site. So council do have an opportunity to influence the future design when it gets to a DA stage.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, actually, that this report that we have in front of us talks about a site-specific DCP being developed and exhibited at the same time as the planning proposal. So you're on board with that based on what you've just said. Have you progressed that to any extent at this stage or not?
At this stage, we haven't. We lodged our plans back in, I think it was September last year, and we've just had this local planning panel meeting now with this report and recommendation. So I appreciate that we probably had not a lot of time and notice since getting the feedback back from council, but it is something that we are looking to work towards because we do acknowledge that there might be some site-specific controls required to maximize the design quality and amenity for this site when we do divest it.
Thank you. There's one other question, just reverting back to the VPA. The offer that was made by Sydney Metro was back in September of 2021. And at that stage, the buildings were 24 stories and 14 stories to the north. Now, with the reduction in height of the northern building, your offer is still valid, or are you thinking of adjusting it?
So the offer is still valid. To clarify, although the building height reduced, we were able to sort of massage the GFA in between the full plate to kind of recover some of that back. Whilst we appreciate the height also reduced, we also had increased setbacks on the western side, which are now ADG compliant, which previously they weren't, but now they are. With those factors in, yes, we can still commit to the letter of public benefit offering, which is what we had. It's not an actual VPA just yet. But however, I guess putting it on notice, if there were to be changes to the height or the FSR sort, we might need to revisit that VPA in just terms of the feasibility of it in the context of the uplift.
Because a childcare facility really does seem like a good idea, and it's something that would be beneficial from a number of points of view. So that is something that seems worth pursuing.
Yeah, we've actually had quite a few sessions with council officers on the design of that childcare as well. So council officers specify design requirements like we'd like it on the ground floor, all on one level. There needs to be elements of, north-facing solar access, dedicated car spaces and dedicated lifts as well for the facility. And we're able to commit to all of those terms as well. And we've demonstrated that in the plans, in the planning proposal report as well.
Thank you.
And is it proposed to be a facility for approximately 50 children?
So the facility requirements, so council has provided us a brief and we've responded to that. So the brief was 900 square meters that made up of 450 indoor and 450 outdoor space. Unsure whether that translates to about 50 children or not, but I think the intention was, as detailed in the report, that this would be the sort of next version of the Kelly's Place childcare, but I'm unsure in terms of the exact numerical number. But in terms of the floor space and the cold shell, the parking and the lifts, we can definitely say we meet all of those requirements by council.
Thank you. Is there anything further that you wish to address the panel with?
No, I wasn't registered to speak originally, but I hope you appreciated my comments on the design and the proposal. I guess to reiterate maybe what Sean said at the start, again, we look forward to progressing this planning proposal. It's been a very long time in the making, and we're happy to come back in particular around those questions around affordable housing. As we stated before, right now, Sydney Metro, we're looking at a government line-wide response to affordable housing. And then this site is one of those ones we are considering as well, what would be the affordable housing offering. But we would like at this stage, hoping that we could progress the proposal based off the merits that we have demonstrated. And hopefully we can revisit the affordable housing conversation.
Just one point on that affordable housing then. You said that the government was progressing it separately. I suppose then, is there a need to understand where that will be going and how that will then translate on the ground for sites such as this?
I guess what we can do is we can come back with an update on that, if that's a clear point. Would the panel be looking for the applicant to make an offer for affordable housing at this stage, or is that what I'm?
Well, that would be what we're looking at, given this is as I said earlier, and it's all agreed, Karen, so I suggested it is an absolutely ideal site. I can't even think of a better adjective to have affordable housing within it in North Sydney. So that was, that is something that is very much in the panel's mind.
Yeah, I think we're happy to take that on notice and come back. The reason why, just to reiterate again, that we haven't provided a response is that we were just waiting for kind of Sydney Metro to land on a position for a line-wide approach to affordable housing adjacent to metro stations, and we wanted to be in lieu, I guess, in line with that proposal.
Yep, and I do believe Gary has another question for you.
I think you've covered it there, but whether Karen can sort of advance your comments further, Eric, by telling us when we might get some feedback on affordable housing.
I think, Sean, do we have any idea around the timeframes in terms of the metro policy at this stage?
Unfortunately, we can't provide a time frame at this stage. As I've said, it's a live conversation that's happening with the new government. So we are not at liberty to give any time frames, since we're also waiting for advice.
Yeah. I'm just thinking aloud, and that my fellow panel members may not agree. I I hear on the one hand, you've got an urgency to progress it. And, you know, we've heard that you've amended it, but at the end of the day, we have to assess what's in front of us. It doesn't matter that you might have asked for 10 to 1 and whatever else. At the end of the day, we're looking at what is here before us. And given, you know, affordable housing is a real issue, would you like to come back? And as I said, I haven't discussed it with my panel members. Would you like to come back before we make a recommendation to the council, and we could defer it to allow you to do that?
Yeah, we can just have to take it back to the team. I think that sounds like a sensible solution. I guess if the answer is still that we are unable to at this point recommend a quantum of affordable housing, would that sort of stop the application progressing is what I'd like to ask? Or
well, I suppose we're living in a world where we're very optimistic about coordinated approaches to what we do in terms of planning. And if there was ever a time when it was more relevant, it's right now. And we certainly would like to, you know, we hear that we want to progress it, but at the same time, well, we've got this very long building. Should there be breaks, etc. We can't then achieve the 5.3 to 1. Then we want to sell it. Then there's an expectation from the developer develop to that maximum, and he can achieve that GFA, which is at the end of the day what the value of the land is. So we just think that we would like to give you the opportunity to come back with something that there is some real community benefits, apart from a childcare centre for council or whatever else. At the end of the day, you know, we'd like you to think it through very carefully in terms of what could be provided on this particular site, given that, as we also indicated, this should be an example then for the state government in many respects as to a coordinated approach to planning and the delivery of housing. So in that regard, what's your response? Is you seeking us to make a recommendation on the information before us, or would you like the opportunity to defer it?
Just one more follow-up question. If we were to defer it, when do we need to come back to the panel by?
Well, then I'd ask you what sort of a time frame you needed to realistically look at the issues that have been raised here today.
Yeah, I think if we can come back sort of, if we can do we have to make a decision on the call? I'm just conscious that we have to discuss with other people before we sort of make a decision.
It's something that we will have to discuss with other members of the Sydney Metro team, because this touches on a policy position, and it's again a live conversation that we're having with the wider government. It would be
this may provide the appropriate impetus.
I wonder if another option for us to continue to progress is to have this matter added to the DCP preparation, that we do need to do a bit of work on the DCP. If this can be an issue that can be also included in that DCP process, and potentially the VPA final process. So there's two rigorous processes to go through without then needing to defer, if you're comfortable with the other provisions of the planning proposal.
I suppose in many respects, because of the constraints on the site, the DCP is very important, and it may be that you can't achieve 5.3 to 1. So we're putting the cart before the horse in some respects. So we do need more work on the DCP to inform us as to what are then the appropriate planning controls. And then there's the issue of the VPA as well, and the affordable housing issue. So I see some difficulty in just allowing this to go through to the keeper without the knowledge, all that other knowledge. And I suppose there is another position. We hear you that you would like to progress it. We as a panel, and as I said, I haven't discussed it with my panel members, but we may say that we think this matter should be deferred. That is something then you don't need to come back to us on. We can do a report with a recommendation. And I can hear you loud and clear that you really want to pursue this the way it is at the moment. But we do hear that, and it is just then a matter that as I said, we're only recommending to the council. We're in no way making the decision, but our recommendation may be that it be deferred or whatever. So you probably don't need to come back to us in that regard. We can handle it in that manner. But I just wanted to give you the opportunity. I'm always very transparent about how I operate, and I think a number of you know that are on the call. So I just thought I'd flag that.
I think this panel or a future panel would benefit from that extra work, Aaron, that's been done at DCP, and Sean too. It would also, and/or Eric, it would benefit from any work that you might have done on improving, increasing, and generally changing the articulation of the building.
Because I think that's what lacks, the scheme is lacking at the moment, you know, articulation. And also if there is, you know, if we go down, you know, affordable housing, a floor plate's going to change. It's not going to be these luxurious units. You're going to have more units, or, you know, so, I mean, that would be worthwhile exploring, because I think it's a real possibility.
Yeah. Okay.
Apologies to interject, but like also like the matter of affordable housing could be dealt with at the gateway determination stage. So as I've said, we are in discussion for a whole of government approach that includes the Department of Planning. So if this is recommended to progress to the gateway determination stage, if it is decided at that stage that there's a certain response for government-owned land to provide affordable housing, it would be included as part of our gateway condition. So this is not the end of the line. If we push it to the department is well and truly involved in that conversation that we're having as a whole of government approach. And also in terms of the design for affordable housing, if we were to have a response to affordable housing, we do not intend for affordable housing to be discernible from private housing. That is not the government approach. So it wouldn't affect the design or the floor plate or the design of our residential component. It will just be a certain percentage of that residential component being considered as affordable housing. It would not affect how we deal with the design.
Yeah, we understand that, Sean. Yep, that's fine. Okay, look, I can hear your position, and we've got some considerations to make on this matter. And as I said, for the proponents of the previous planning proposal, our recommendation will be on council's website at least within a week. Generally it's earlier, but I think that we need to discuss this with a great deal of consideration for all of the concerns that have been raised both by yourselves today and this panel. You also have the opportunity, when it goes to the council meeting, of making a presentation to the council, because as I said earlier, we are purely recommending in this instance. Yeah. Okay then, well, I think I'll close the meeting for today unless there's anything further that you wish to add.